There has never been a time when the human mind felt this pulled apart. Not because life is heavier than before, not because people are weaker or broken, but because attention is constantly being dragged in too many directions at once. From the moment the day begins, the mind is already crowded. You wake up feeling tired, even if your body has rested, because your thoughts have been running long before your feet touch the floor. Before anything has started, your mind is already busy. Plans rush in, worries show up, small thoughts fight for space. You try to begin your day, but your attention is split. Part of you is present, but part of you is already somewhere else. When you sit down to work, your hands are there, but your mind keeps drifting. When you try to relax, your body slows down, but your thoughts refuse to follow. You begin many tasks, but you rarely feel fully inside any of them. You move quickly from one thing to the next, hoping the next moment will feel better. But it never quite does. Over time, something painful starts to grow quietly. You stop trusting your own ability to focus. You feel rushed even when there is no hurry. You feel shallow even though you care deeply. You feel scattered, as if your attention no longer belongs to you. You know you have more potential than this. You can sense it, but your focus never stays long enough to reach it. Every time you try to settle into something, your mind slips away. This is not because you are lazy. It is not because you lack discipline. It is because your attention has been trained to break apart. Long ago, this state was noticed and named. It was not called distraction. It was called a fractured mind. A mind that could not stay whole. And the belief was simple but serious. A mind that is split cannot master anything. No matter how intelligent it is, no matter how motivated it feels, a fractured mind cannot go deep. It cannot build strength. It cannot develop trust with itself. It stays busy, but it never becomes powerful. This is why the problem of distraction was never treated lightly. It was seen as a threat to becoming complete as a person. If this feels familiar, that is not an accident. This feeling of being everywhere at once, yet never fully present, is the quiet problem of our time. And recognizing it is the first step toward bringing the mind back together. When attention stays broken for too long, it stops feeling like a problem you have and starts feeling like who you are. Distraction no longer shows up as a bad habit you can fix later. It becomes part of your daily experience. You begin to think of yourself as someone who cannot stay with things. Someone who starts with energy but fades quickly. Someone capable, yet unable to go deep. This is where the damage becomes personal. You may still work hard. You may still care. From the outside, you may even look productive. But inside, something feels thin. You move through tasks without fully entering them. You touch many things but rarely feel connected to any of them. Work gets done, but it feels empty. Progress happens, but it feels shallow. You start many projects with hope. You read the first pages. You plan the first steps. You feel a spark at the beginning, but that spark fades before depth forms. Not because the task is too hard, but because your attention slips away. Each time this happens, something quiet is reinforced. The belief that you cannot trust your focus to stay. This belief hurts more than distraction itself. When you no longer trust your attention, you stop asking yourself for deep effort. You lower your expectations not out of laziness, but out of self-protection. You avoid fully committing because part of you expects to drift. Over time, this creates a painful gap between what you know you could become and what you actually experience each day. You can feel that gap. It shows up as frustration without a clear cause. It shows up as restlessness even during rest. It shows up as the sense that your life is moving, but you are not fully inside it. You know there is more in you, but your mind never stays long enough to reach it. This is why distraction is not just about losing time. It slowly reshapes how you see yourself. It turns strong people into unfinished versions of who they could be, not because they lack ability, but because their attention is never whole. The important truth is this: Nothing about this means you are broken. It means your mind has been trained to split. And what has been trained can be trained again. But before that can happen, you must see distraction clearly, not as a small habit, but as a force that shapes identity. And long before modern life, there were those who saw this danger clearly and refused to ignore it. Long before screens, notifications, and constant noise, this problem was already understood. Ancient Japanese warriors, monks, and craftsmen noticed something important about the human mind. They saw that when attention was divided, something essential was lost. They did not call this state distraction. They called it a fractured mind. A mind split into pieces, never fully present in one place. To them, this was not a small weakness. It was a serious condition. A fractured mind, no matter how intelligent or skilled, could never master anything. Intelligence alone was not enough. Talent alone was not enough. Without steady attention, even the brightest mind remained shallow. Knowledge stayed on the surface. Skill never settled deep enough to become reliable. The Japanese believed awareness had weight. When it was scattered, it became thin and weak. When it was gathered, it became strong and precise. A divided mind could learn many things, but it could not embody them. It could repeat actions, but it could not perform them with depth. It could stay busy, but it could not become powerful. This belief came from careful observation, not theory. Warriors saw it in battle. Monks saw it in meditation. Craftsmen saw it in their work. Whenever the mind jumped from place to place, mistakes appeared. Movements lost sharpness. Judgment weakened. Effort increased, but results declined. The cost of divided awareness was always the same. More energy spent, less meaning gained. Because of this, distraction was never treated as harmless. It was not ignored or laughed away. It was respected as a real danger. A person with a fractured mind could not be trusted with mastery, responsibility, or deep skill. Not because they were bad or careless, but because their attention could not stay whole. This way of thinking changes how the struggle feels. It removes shame. It explains why effort alone often fails. If the mind is divided, pushing harder only spreads it thinner. The problem is not that you are not trying enough. The problem is that your attention is never allowed to gather. The Japanese saw this clearly. They understood that the mind must be trained to remain whole before it can become strong. And from this understanding, they developed a discipline meant to restore what had been split. A discipline not based on force or speed, but on presence. The Japanese did not study attention in comfort. They studied it where mistakes had real consequences. For the samurai, divided attention was not a small flaw. It was a matter of life and death. In battle, even a brief moment of wandering focus could not be corrected later. There was no second chance. A split mind reacted too slowly, and slow reaction meant injury or death. Mastery in this world demanded complete presence. This understanding did not stay on the battlefield. Monks saw the same truth in meditation. When the mind drifted, clarity never arrived. Not because the monk lacked intelligence or patience, but because awareness never stayed long enough to settle. Each wandering thought pulled the mind away from depth. Each moment of distraction weakened the practice. Craftsmen noticed it in their hands. When attention jumped between tasks, the work lost its soul. A piece could be finished, measured, and approved, yet still feel empty. The technique might be correct, but the result lacked life. The Japanese believed this happened because the craftsman was never fully inside the work. Attention came and went, and depth never formed. From these observations came a simple belief: where attention scatters, power leaks. Effort without focus is like pouring water into a cracked vessel. No matter how much you add, it never fills. Distraction thins discipline. It drains strength quietly. Over time, capable people begin to feel weak, not because they are, but because their energy is always leaking away. The most dangerous part of this loss is how subtle it is. Distraction does not announce itself as failure. Life continues. Tasks get done. Days stay full. But mastery disappears quietly. Depth is replaced with surface movement. Years pass without real growth. A person stays busy but never becomes sharp. This is why distraction was treated with urgency. Not because it made life noisy, but because it blocked transformation. Mastery requires staying with effort long enough for it to change you. It requires presence when things feel slow, heavy, or difficult. A scattered mind avoids these moments. It escapes before depth can take hold. The Japanese believed that ignoring this truth led to mediocrity at best and weakness at worst. And once mastery was lost, it was hard to recover. That is why attention was guarded so carefully. It was the foundation of all strength. And this is why they searched for a way to bring the mind back together before it was too late. Distraction is not just random. It does not appear because the mind is curious or creative. The Japanese understood it differently. They saw distraction as the mind's escape instinct. Whenever effort feels heavy, the mind looks for relief. Whenever boredom appears, it seeks entertainment. Whenever silence arrives, it invents noise. The mind is not exploring, it is running away. Over time, this habit of escape becomes subtle but powerful. Small acts of avoidance teach the mind that discomfort must be avoided. Reading a difficult page, sitting still for a moment, or repeating a movement becomes a signal to flee. Each small escape trains the mind to resist focus. Slowly, the mind becomes impatient, restless, unable to stay with anything for long. Even short periods of concentration feel uncomfortable. Even simple silence feels irritating. Even small effort feels heavy. This is why people struggle to finish what they start. Not because they lack skill, intelligence, or discipline, but because the mind has been conditioned to avoid staying in one place. Growth only happens when we face resistance. Skill forms when we repeat a task long enough for it to stick. Clarity appears when we remain still despite discomfort. Strength develops inside the moments we least want to endure. And every escape delays or destroys these moments. The Japanese saw this pattern clearly. When the mind flees, nothing ever penetrates deeply enough to transform you. Attention is scattered. Presence disappears. Effort is diluted. Life may seem busy, yet results remain shallow. Days are full, but satisfaction is absent. The mind may appear active, but it is never fully engaged. This fear of stillness is quiet but destructive. The more we avoid, the weaker we become. Every attempt to escape reinforces the habit. Every time we switch tasks, check a phone, or drift into thoughts about the future, the mind learns that discomfort is unacceptable. And the more it learns, the less capable it becomes of facing focus without stress. The Japanese recognized that this escape instinct is not weakness. It is the natural response of a mind trained over years. But they also knew that a trained mind could be guided to stay. And from this understanding, they built a method to return the mind to its own presence, to resist the urge to flee, and to reclaim the power lost to constant distraction. This is the first step toward the discipline that restores wholeness. The Japanese discovered a solution to the fractured mind. They called it Ichigyo-Zammai. The phrase is simple, but the practice is almost forgotten today. Ichigyo means one act. Zammai means complete absorption. Together, it is the discipline of giving your entire attention to a single action. Nothing else exists. No past, no future, only this act, only this moment. When a monk sweeps the floor, he does not think about finishing. He does not worry about what comes next or what has already happened. His mind is not elsewhere. He only sweeps. When a samurai trains, he does not dream of victory or fear failure. He does not compare himself to others or judge his progress. He only trains. Every movement, every breath, every gesture is attended to fully. This principle may seem simple, yet it is rare. The modern mind is trained to leave the present at the first sign of discomfort. When effort arrives, it plans an escape. When boredom appears, it searches for distraction. The mind is constantly elsewhere, pulled into the past or dragged toward the future. Ichigyo-Zammai reverses this habit. It brings the mind back to where the body already is. It does not demand speed. Motivation comes and goes, but presence remains. Depth arises naturally when attention stops wandering. With practice, focus becomes effortless. You no longer chase satisfaction or avoid discomfort. You simply stay with the act in front of you. This discipline can transform the ordinary into something profound. Sweeping, walking, writing, or training is no longer mechanical. It becomes a form of meditation, a way to restore wholeness to a distracted mind. Each action, performed fully, teaches the mind trust and patience. Each moment of absorption strengthens the ability to remain present, even in the face of challenge or boredom. Ichigio Zamayi is not about doing more. It is about doing one thing completely. The reward is not immediate. It is subtle. Clarity returns. Energy stops leaking. Depth reappears. And for the first time in a long while, you feel whole again. This is the core of the Japanese method. One act, one mind. Nothing else matters. And this simple focus is the key to reclaiming the strength lost to constant distraction. Depth matters more than speed, more than bursts of motivation. The Japanese understood this clearly. Motivation rises and falls like waves, and speed comes and goes with circumstance. But depth lasts. Depth grows silently, steadily, and it transforms everything it touches. When your mind stops jumping from task to task, when it stops chasing fleeting pleasure or avoiding discomfort, it begins to strengthen. Depth is not about doing more. It is about fully inhabiting what you already do. Reading a page, writing a paragraph, sweeping the floor, practicing a movement, each act done completely teaches the mind something essential: trust. Trust in your attention. Trust in your ability to stay. Trust in your own presence. When the mind learns it can remain fully in one moment, energy stops leaking. The scattered exhaustion that filled your days begins to fade. When attention gathers instead of dispersing, something subtle but powerful happens. Work feels lighter, even when it is still difficult. Tasks no longer carry hidden resistance. Life does not slow down, but your perception of it changes. You are no longer rushing inside yourself, no longer fractured. You begin to feel whole again. This wholeness is the foundation of mastery. The ability to enter fully into one moment allows your mind to deepen, your skills to sharpen, and your understanding to grow. You may have felt this before, briefly, a moment of complete focus where time seems to stretch and the world fades away. Ichigio Zamayi trains the mind to reach that state consistently. Depth reshapes more than your productivity. It reshapes your confidence, your patience, and your perception of effort. You no longer need to force focus. Focus comes naturally when the mind trusts itself. Presence becomes a habit rather than a struggle, and life stops feeling fragmented. The Japanese believed this deeply. They knew that a scattered mind could never master anything. Only when attention stops fleeing, only when effort is fully inhabited, can power return. And this is the quiet, lasting power that comes from depth. With this understanding, we can see why multitasking is not just inefficient, it is harmful. When attention divides, depth becomes impossible. And that leads us naturally to the next principle the Japanese observed: why multitasking was seen not as skill, but as a disease of the mind. The Japanese did not admire multitasking. They did not praise it, and they certainly did not teach it. To them, doing many things at once was a sign of inner chaos. A mind split in two cannot be trusted. It cannot hold responsibility, build mastery, or respond fully to life itself. Multitasking was never clever. It was unstable, weak, and dangerous. A person who tries to do several things at once accomplishes none of them completely. Not because they lack effort, but because attention never arrives in full. Even the simplest task becomes fragmented. The samurai understood this first on the battlefield. If the mind shifted between fear, noise, movement, and thought, the body would respond late. Late could mean injury. Late could mean death. There was no room for half attention, no room for distraction, and certainly no room for divided focus. The same principle applied outside combat, though less dramatic. A monk who split attention during meditation never reached clarity. A craftsman who rushed between tasks produced work that looked finished but felt empty. Multitasking slowly drains the mind, leaving people exhausted without ever noticing. Busy days stack up, full of tasks, and yet they feel strangely hollow. The Japanese saw this clearly. A distracted mind does not rest. Even when idle, it is still shifting, still escaping, never fully present. Multitasking does not kill you quickly, but it erodes depth and discipline over time. Work becomes shallow. Effort becomes mechanical. Life feels fast but unsatisfying. You may recognize this yourself, racing between activities, feeling productive, but ending the day with nothing tangible to show for it. Multitasking trains the mind to avoid presence. Every split second reinforces the habit of escape. Effort feels heavy. Silence feels irritating. Focus feels uncomfortable. The mind learns to flee from effort, to fear depth, and to distrust its own attention. This is why multitasking was seen not as efficiency but as a disease. It did not make the person smarter or faster. It made them fragmented, tired, and shallow. Ichigio Zammai offers the cure, not by doing more, but by doing less fully. One breath, one movement, one action. When attention stops scattering, strength returns. When focus is whole, life regains clarity, meaning, and power. Distraction is not random. It is not accidental. It is not a matter of bad luck. The Japanese understood that clearly. Distraction is the mind's escape instinct. Whenever effort becomes uncomfortable, the mind looks for relief. Whenever boredom appears, it searches for stimulation. When silence settles in, the mind fills it with noise. This is not curiosity. It is avoidance. Avoidance of discomfort, avoidance of effort, avoidance of staying long enough for growth to happen. The moment focus deepens, a thought appears. Check your phone, switch tasks, take a break. It seems harmless, but each small escape teaches the mind a dangerous lesson. When things feel heavy, leave. Over time, this habit grows. The mind becomes impatient, restless, and unable to remain fully present. Reading a page becomes difficult. Working without interruption feels impossible. Sitting quietly becomes uncomfortable. The mind has been trained to flee, and fleeing becomes automatic. You may notice it yourself, the urge to move, to check, to distract, all appearing the moment attention tries to settle. This was the shift from the warrior's art to the art of living. To do this, he would have to learn how to face a conflict where the enemy wasn't a man with a sword, but a world that refuses to be quiet. The lessons Takashi learned in the mountains and on the training grounds were never meant to stay there. Musashi's strategy is not a martial art in the way we think of sports today. It is a way of existing in a world that is constantly trying to pull you out of your center. You can apply the Radox shift the very next time you find yourself in a high-pressure meeting or a heated argument. When someone attacks your ideas or speaks to you with disrespect, your natural instinct is to zoom in on the rat. The insult, the tone of their voice, or the fear of looking stupid in front of others. Your world shrinks until all you can see is that one person's face and your own rising anger. To use the shift, you must consciously zoom out to the ox. Look at the room. Remember the long-term goal of the project. Realize that this argument is a tiny speck in the span of your entire life. By moving your mind to the large, the person attacking you suddenly looks small. You regain your peripheral sovereignty, and instead of reacting with heat, you can respond with the cold, clear precision of a strategist. To maintain this ability, you must practice what we call the daily water-bearing ritual. You don't need a waterfall to do this. You simply need the mundane stresses of your morning. When you are stuck in traffic, or when your computer lags, or when you are rushing to get ready, notice the moment your spirit begins to cower or become agitated. Instead of huffing with frustration or tensing your grip on the steering wheel, practice the water spirit. Drop your shoulders. Breathe normally. Let the frustration flow over you without sticking to your skin. Treat the traffic jam exactly like Takashi treated the cold water. It is an environment, not an enemy. If you can stay unaffected by a slow elevator, you are training the muscles you will need when a real crisis hits. Musashi also speaks of a technique called treading down. In the Fire book, he explains that you must crush the enemy's spirit the moment it flickers to life. You can apply this internally to your own panic. The moment you feel that first spark of anxiety, the fluttering in your stomach or the cowering spirit taking hold, you must tread it down instantly. Do not wait for the panic to grow. Do not negotiate with it. The second you notice the stress, use your perception to see it for what it is, a biological reaction. By acknowledging it immediately and returning to your normal mind, you cut the legs out from under the stress before it can run away with your logic. By integrating these small rituals into your daily life, you stop being a victim of your circumstances. You begin to move through the modern world with the quiet, heavy presence of a master. You aren't avoiding stress, you are dominating it. But there is one final level of mastery that goes beyond techniques and shifts. It is the highest peak of Musashi's mountain, a place where the struggle itself disappears. Takashi had learned how to manage the water and how to shift between the rat and the ox, but he still felt like a man trying to be a warrior. The final revelation would show him that as long as there is someone trying to control the mind is not yet truly free. To find the ultimate secret of control under stress, we must enter the final chapter of the 5 rings, the mystery of the void. After all the training, the waterfalls, and the mental shifts, we arrive at the final peak of Musashi's mountain, the Book of the Void. This is the ultimate secret of controlling the mind under stress, and it is the hardest to explain because it is about something that isn't there. For most people, control feels like a struggle. It feels like a person, the self, trying to grab onto a thought, the stress. But in the void, there is no struggle because there is no one left to fight. The master sat with Takashi one last time. He explained that as long as you think, I am stressed, or I must stay calm, you are still trapped in the world of conflict. You have created a self that is separate from the moment, and that self is vulnerable. True control, the kind that makes a warrior invincible, happens when there is no self to be stressed. When you stop worrying about your ego, your reputation, or your safety, the barrier between you and the world disappears. You don't handle the situation. You simply are the situation. In this state, your mind is like a mirror. A mirror doesn't get stressed when it reflects a fire. It simply shows the fire. When the fire goes away, the mirror remains empty and clear. This is the power of the void. It is a state of nothingness, where your spirit is so vast that no amount of pressure can fill it. You act with perfect spontaneity because there is no doubt or fear to slow you down. Musashi ends his life's work with these powerful words: "In the void is virtue and no evil. Wisdom has existence, principle has existence, the way has existence, spirit is nothingness." By reaching this level, you realize that stress was never a monster coming to get you. It was just a shadow that only had power because you were standing in its way. When you become the void, the shadow has nowhere to land. But the journey of the 5 rings does not end on a mountaintop. It ends exactly where it began, in your everyday life, in the middle of the noise and the chaos. To truly honor the way of strategy, we must see how the story of Takashi ends, and how his transformation becomes your own path forward. The master has given us the map. Now, we must take the final step. Takashi walked back down the mountain and returned to the world of men, but the world no longer shook him. The noise of the village, the demands of his peers, and the uncertainty of the future were all still there, but they no longer felt like heavy chains around his spirit. He had learned that the secret to controlling the mind under stress wasn't about building a wall to hide behind. It was about becoming like the mountain, unmoved by the wind, and like the water, flowing through every obstacle without losing its essence. He was no longer a man reacting to life. He was a strategist moving through it. As you reflect on Takashi's journey, you must realize that the path of the 5 rings is open to those who stop trying to control. Most people spend their entire lives in a state of mental tension, trying to grip their thoughts and force their emotions into submission. They think that if they just try harder, they will finally find peace. But Musashi's greatest lesson is that control is found in letting go of the struggle. When you stop trying to force the water to be still, it becomes still on its own. When you stop obsessing over the rat of your daily worries, the ox of your true potential finally comes into view. This isn't a technique you use once and then forget. It is a way of being that you carry into every conversation, every task, and every moment of pressure. The transformation you seek doesn't require you to move to a mountain or carry a sword. It requires you to change your spirit right where you are. Whether you are facing a corporate boardroom, a difficult family situation, or the internal battle of your own anxiety, the principles remain the same. Maintain the water spirit. Practice the rat-ox shift. Tread down the sparks of panic before they become a fire. By doing this, you are not just surviving stress, you are using it as the fuel for your own mastery. You are turning the chaos of modern life into a training ground for your spirit. Musashi often said that the brush and the sword are one. He meant that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you can master your mind while washing a dish or walking down the street, you can master your mind when your life is falling apart. There is no distinction between the warrior and the person. There is only the way. The techniques we have discussed today are the tools, but you are the craftsman. Now that you have the knowledge, the only thing left is the practice. If this philosophy resonated with you, it is a sign that your spirit is ready for the fixed mind. Do not let this be another video you simply watch and forget. Take one technique, the water bearing or the rat-ox shift, and apply it to one stressful moment tomorrow. See how it feels to let the water flow over you. See how it feels to zoom out and see the big picture. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, and the journey of a master begins with a single breath. If you found value in these ancient secrets, consider subscribing to join our community of modern strategists. We explore the depths of ancient wisdom to find the keys to modern power. Like this video to help others find their center in the storm, and leave a comment below telling us which of Musashi's principles you need most in your life right now. The broom is waiting, the sword is ready, and the path is open. Until next time, stay fixed, stay fluid, and remember, in the void, there is no limit to what you can become.